Oh, the humanity. What are we doing here as far as Checo Perez is concerned, as a going concern in Flotsam and Jetsam F1? And he is that. He has been that of late. That's not to say once upon a time he wasn't God tier. But 2020 Sakir was a long time ago. So too Turkey 21. So too Abu Dhabi 21, where he was absolutely instrumental in deciding which way the Drivers' Championship went. But F1 is a sport where what have you done for me lately is all that counts. And we need to talk about Checo Perez going into Hungary because the circle, everybody's rounding on him. Nobody's supporting him any longer, not even Christian Horner or Helmut Marko, nor F1 champions. Please see Jenson Button, who had this to say about the predicament currently confronting one Checo Perez, formerly known as the Mexican Minister of Defense. Around Checo Perez's underperformance, Jenson Button says it's a massive, massive issue. At Silverstone, he was unlucky in some ways. This isn't going to happen every race weekend, but for McLaren to be taking this many points out of them, it needs to be fixed. Checo needs to be scoring some points at least, even if he's not directly behind Max. They can't let this go on forever. I think in the next race, being Hungary, if he's not scoring points again, soon enough they're going to have to get him out the car and put somebody else in. It's tough, I know. It's not a nice feeling for a driver. It's horrible. But for them, the championship, the Constructors' Championship is, of course, important. This is Jenson Button, man who knows all about not having a seat in F1. He's saying that they might need to get rid of Checo Perez. What are you talking about, chap? Of course. Like, tell me something I didn't know. In other news, is rain still wet, such as the material underperformance of one Checo Perez? Of course, they need to get him out, but there is context and there is subplots, of course. Checo Perez indeed should never have been given that 2-year contract. He didn't deserve it. Meritocracy is always a thing in F1. So too, however, is financial resource, and he brings in circa $30 million courtesy of sponsor Carlos Slim each in every single year. So too, there was a debt to be paid. Christian Horner has 2 drivers currently in that car, one called Checo, one called Maximilian Verstappen. Only one of those came out and supported Christian Horner unequivocally in his time of need during peak oil theory Christian Horner PA allegation gate. That driver had a name. That driver's name was one Checo Perez, formerly known as the Mexican Minister of Defense. But for that, there is no way on God's green earth that Checo Perez has himself a 1+1 contract, but we are where we are. However, the underperformance of late has been material, too material to ignore. We are talking about extents and not kinds. For the avoidance of doubt, how many times do you think of late Checo Perez has failed to get out of Q1, not Q2, Q1? And again, you would assume that this is baseline as far as Red Bull. If you are in a dominant car, getting out of Q1 is assumed knowledge, right? Surely that's the very least that you have to do in qualification. 3 of the last 5 for the avoidance of doubt. Those are the amount of times that Checo Perez has not gotten out of Q1. It's unacceptable. He's currently 137 points behind his teammate Maximilian Verstappen in the same bloody car, and we have had 12 races. That's chaos. The delta between Maximilian Verstappen, therefore, if I do some very quick basic maths, he's been gapping him to the tune, on average, of more than 12 points each and every single race. What are we doing? That's just chaos. I cannot compute for it in real time. And again, you want some more stats, check these ones out. He scored 15 points from his last 6 races. What are we doing? Come on, Checo. I'm rooting for you, sir. I wish you the best. I hope that you nail it in Hungary and Spa the next 2 races, because we want for you to. But you are going to need to Checo Perez. This is DEFCON 5 now. Time for action. Not for talking or anything else, circumventing and dancing around the underperformance subject. The time is now, Checo Perez. And you know how you know this? You only need to look at Goodwood Festival of Speed and see the dynamic, the chemistry between former Red Bull Racing driver Danny Rick Honeybadger. They are potentially looking to sub him imminently. He is there, he is available, he's still part of the Red Bull F1 family, and they might tag him in. However, let's get techie for a second. There are performance clauses in Checo Perez's contract, discretionary ones. Red Bull aren't under any obligation to exercise for them. However, this is what they state. After the summer break, after the next 2 races, the first being Hungary, the second being Spa, Red Bull could exercise this performance clause should Checo Perez's performance still be sufficiently material. Here's what that means. If he's more than 100 points away from his teammate Maximilian Verstappen, they can exit him straight away. Now, people thought that there might be a lifeline, that as at the time when Checo Perez signed his extension, that the performance clause would come into play next year. Not so, chap. The performance clause comes into play this year. Christian Horner is a God tier 1, and he knew that there was a risk, an imminent risk, clear and present danger of Checo Perez signing that contract and doing what Checo Perez does and resting on his laurels, laissez-faire attitude, performance dropping. This means then that after Spa, they're going to have themselves a conversation, and if Red Bull choose to do so, they can replace Checo Perez in that seat. That's not to say, however, that he doesn't have other terms in his contracts. Word on the F1 curb is that in his contract, apart from this performance clause, he can't be replaced. They can't shift him down to RBV's cash app. Checo Perez knew that that was a risk and so had it written in, but that is overtyped by the bloody performance clause. That only stands up if you are less than 100 points away from your teammate Max Verstappen. Oh, the humanity. Going to be chaotic this weekend, ladies and gents. I'm telling you, Hungary, there are stakes. There are drivers literally driving to survive. That driver has a name, and his name is Checo Perez. Good luck, sir, because you're going to need to pull it out. You're 37 points to the bad as far as that performance clause is concerned. And again, he's God tier. I wouldn't be so disparaging and so overly critical if once upon a time Checo Perez was never the one, but he was once. He did have it once upon a time under steery settings, tyre management, tyre whisperer settings. Once upon a time he was really good, and he needs to recapture that former glory. Not tomorrow, now. At Hungary and Spa, if he harbours aspirations of sticking, of maintaining, continuing as a going concern as a Red Bull Racing driver. For there are sharks in the water and they are circling. They have a name. Their names: Daniel Ricciardo, Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, and Carlos Sainz Jr. Gonna get techie. Oh, the humanity, chat. What are we doing here?